New Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver sent a terrifying message about what he expects out of his defense in 2026.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here for you. And thanks so much to all of the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. On today's show, we have a lot to dive into. As in the first part of the show, we'll talk about Anthony Weaver. He had a terrifying message about what he expects out of his Ravens defense in 2026. In the second part of the show, the Tyreek Hill to the Ravens conversations have already begun as the Dolphins released Tyreek and a lot of players on Monday. We'll have into that in the second part of the show. And then finally, we'll get into the Ravens situation a little bit and just how well they are set up or not as they head into free agency here. Thanks again for being here. We have so much to talk about. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Anthony Weaver sending a terrifying message. Now, he went on the lounge with Garrett Downing and Clifton Brown. It's an awesome interview if you want to go check it out. But he said this, it was terrifying. Again, the word I'm using, terrifying, chilling, whatever you want to use, but I am fired up about it. And so I talked about a lot. And the last question was about just the defense. And it was essentially like, all right, what do you want out of the defense? What are you looking for? That was the conversation of the episode where he talked about a lot of different players, position groups. And so all leading up to this last question, and Anthony Weaver gave a summarization of what he wants his Ravens defenses to be like, or this defense to be like in 2026. He said, quote, "You guys remember the mid-90s Nolan Richardson Arkansas basketball teams? 45 minutes of hell. I want our guys, when they finish the game, for it to be 60 minutes of hell. When you played us, you're going to know you left to fight, and we're going to try to hit everything moving, fly around, play connected, play together, and do all we can to make sure you played in a game that was 60 minutes of hell." All right, I'm about to go run through this wall right here. I'll be right back. No, I'm just kidding, but that's how I feel. Like, I am fired up about that because this is the mentality. This is, and if you remember, Anthony Weaver had a viral quote when he was in Miami about playing violent. Like, this is the type of guy that Anthony Weaver is. And he actually talked about that viral quote in this interview. He was asked about it. And in response to that, he said, just to explain everything, he said, off the field, be a man, be accountable, be dependable, somebody that should be trusted. And on the field, you want to carry that with you, but there also has to be a switch. At some point, when you cross those white lines, something has to switch and you have to play through the echo of the whistle. And he said, like, essentially, you're trying to take money out of another guy's pocket, and you have to do that, you know, with violence, essentially, is what the message was from Anthony Weaver. And, you know, for a lot of the season last year, this wasn't just limited to the defense either. I'm not putting it on one unit or one coach or one player or whatever. It was a team thing. It just felt like at times, I don't want to say the motivation wasn't there because I think that's unfair. I don't think these guys were unmotivated to win or to play. I think that's false. But it just felt like at times, what was the messaging? What was the words? Was everybody on the same page with the messaging? I think with Weaver there, the unit, the defense will be aligned in that message. And again, I'm not saying that they weren't last season. I don't know what went on behind the scenes there. But that's what it felt like to me, where at times it just felt like the messaging might not have been getting through. This to me is a message that can get through. I think it is simple, yet effective. And again, there's a lot more than just goes into, hey, play violent and you'll win the game. Of course, there's X's and O's, there's schematic stuff, and that's all stuff that Weaver got into as well. And talked a lot about Jesse Minter and what their dynamic is going to be, which I think is really interesting. He said, quote, I come into this with no ego, and I know Jesse's the same way. All of us are committed to one thing, and that's winning. I truly believe the combination of us both, plus the staff that we've assembled, is going to be pretty awesome. And, you know, there's a lot of different things that what were mentioned, and Jesse Minter has mentioned this as well. Also, we know that the coordinators will be talking tomorrow, and I'm curious to hear Weaver's thoughts on it a little bit more in that setting where, you know, we'll be live after the fact and that here on the show, and we'll dive into that. But I just feel like Weaver, after a couple years in Miami, he called it a unique experience. And, he's had coordinator experience as well in 2020. And like he's been there, he's done that, of course, with the player aspect as well, him being in the organization. I wasn't really counting Weaver in for a job in Baltimore as a defensive coordinator because I thought that he would be hired somewhere else. Maybe he could call plays somewhere, a team would want him. But he outlined his situation, which I thought was interesting in the fact that, he obviously wanted a head coaching opportunity, dove into the fact that he was pretty disappointed that didn't happen. But of course, made it clear that this was far from a consolation prize because it is such a good position for him to be in. But he said, quote, "I certainly wasn't defeated and I'd hardly call this a consolation prize to be here. It certainly was not a sad moment." And that's something he initially talked about in his first comments after getting the D coordinator job. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But I just think the confidence that Anthony Weaver speaks with, the way that he is able to get his messaging across, and like he's confident in what what he wants his defense to be. And I think to me that's a really big factor. We know when he was here, we've had current former Ravens as well talk about it on the show, how well liked Anthony Weaver was/is in that locker room. It gives me a lot of excitement, especially working with Jesse Minter over the course of this year and however long the partnership and the duo between them lasts, because I think, again, I'm expecting a big bounce back year from this defense. And if that happens, again, Weaver, he said he interviewed for half the openings, I believe it was. And if it happens where he has a great year in Baltimore, his time in Baltimore might not be long in terms of getting a potential promotion to a head coach, which I would love for him. It'd be great. He deserves it. And especially with another year of success in Baltimore, where if you remember, again, that last season in 2023, that was a historic level defense with a lot of guys having awesome years. Nnamdi Madubuike, Davion Clowney, Kyle Van Noy, et cetera. Like, that's huge. It's huge. And he actually talked about a lot of different things schematically. And, just a summary of it. He said, quote, "Schematically, you're always trying to attack protections and manipulate schemes or manipulate space, excuse me." And he also said that, look, the talent on that D-line, they have the talent on the D-line to win one-on-one situations. And the big thing with what this team has to offer, he talked a lot about Kyle Hamilton and Malaki Starks and the smartness that those guys have, how smart they are. But he also mentioned the fact that fourth quarter leads, he got so technical in this of like every rep in practice, you do this over and over again, you get that in your mind and it just becomes routine to where that doesn't happen. He mentioned that the lack of turnovers, they need to have a ball mentality where every opportunity, every strip opportunity, when the ball's in the air, the talent on the defense and in the secondary, that should be, their ball. Like that mentality, again, like on the field, that's one thing, right? Execution on the field. But you also have to be in the right mind space and headspace. And with a tough year, with struggles on defense, and obviously throughout the team, you're losing, it's just tough. And so I think if they can get off to a hot start early, really hit the turnovers hard and get all that down, I think this team is going to be in a lot better shape defensively than they were. And again, you now have an opportunity to kind of revamp your pass rush, revamp a couple other positions. I'm excited. I'm really, really excited about this defense. And he also talked about Lamar Jackson and, how this defense can improve just practicing against Lamar. Called Lamar 2-time, should be 3-time MVP. So Anthony Weaver putting some respect on Lamar's name and mentioned that, hey, glad he's on the same sideline as Lamar now again because he threw 4 touchdowns when Lamar played Miami. And again, Lamar just loves playing the Dolphins, so that's not a shock to anybody. But again, a ton of awesome insight from Anthony Weaver. I think it was really cool to hear what he had to say. And, for me, I am expecting a big bounce back year from this defense with the experience that Anthony Weaver has, both as a player and as a coach, the familiarity that these guys have with him who have been in Baltimore when Weaver was a coach, and just the fact that they have the talent to do it. Like, they have the talent to do it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the final part of the show. But coming up with the second part of the show, the Tyreek Hill to Baltimore speculation and conversations, well, that didn't take long to start up. So we'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Regular show is Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern time, but an exciting announcement. You might have already seen it if you saw what we put out on Monday yesterday, but we're now doing 2 daily shows each and every single day here on Locked On Ravens on the weekdays. So the regular show, again, it's not changing. We're still Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. That is, again, our 30 to 36-minute show, 3 segments. But we're going to add on a check-in show, a mini show. I'm still deciding. I'm calling them check-ins for now. Maybe I'll call them mini episodes. If you have a suggestion, you can put it in the comments below, or video form, audio form. But it's going to be about 10 to 15 minutes, 10 to 16 minutes, 2 segments just to check in over the course of the day. So we'll have, again, our regular show, 6 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, and then the check-ins, the mini episodes at 6 p.m. Eastern time, along with all the other stuff we do, bonus episodes on the weekends if there are headlines, instant reactions after big Ravens news, and after games during the season, watch-alongs after or during games during the year, as well as the Locked On Ravens Squad Show twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Myself, Sam Njoku, former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail, and also the Everydayer Club on Locked On Ravens, where there's like extra add-on content, so you get one-on-one text conversation with me, access to ad-free episodes, a Discord server, weekly Q&As, and a lot more. So if you're interested in that, link in the description down below, as well as on the Locked On website on the Locked On Ravens page. But all right, let's talk about Tyreek Hill a little bit now. For the check-in episode yesterday evening, we talked about Bradley Chubb and why I think it's a perfect fit for the Ravens. So if you haven't checked that out, be sure you do so. But Bradley Chubb was not the only Dolphins player the Dolphins released. They felt like they released their whole team, but they released a bunch of guys, one of them being Tyreek Hill. And so I think Hill is a really intriguing, I guess, potential add for the Ravens. Look, we know Tyreek has been a dominant player over the course of his career, right? There are no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You know, when looking at Tyreek and his stats, I mean, second season in Miami, put up 1,799 yards, 13 touchdowns. That was his best season. But obviously the thing for Tyreek is he suffered a catastrophic injury just 4 games into the season this year. He is going to be 32 years old soon. And there's a lot in terms of what his potential status could be for next season, where he might not play at all in 2026. It was revealed that he has to have another surgery, essentially. So, I mean, there's a lot of question marks with Tyreek. I think even if he's not the same player he once was, and he's still like 3/4 of who he was, he's still a really dynamic and talented player that could help a team like the Ravens. Again, there's a lot of other stuff with Tyreek you got to factor in as well. I'm not, it's just something that you have to factor in. But the thing to me is, if he's not going to be ready to play, halfway through the year, 3/4 of the way through the year, and he's demanding a decently big deal. Again, I'm not sure how much he'd be asking for. Is it 10 million per season? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it a 1-year deal where you can't move the money around? Like, there's a lot of question marks. Tyreek is a player that you have to at least look at the talent, but at the same time, with everything you have to factor in and the injuries and all the others, it's a lot with Tyreek. Plus, he's not the he doesn't have the body in terms of height that I feel like the Ravens need right now. I talked about that with Marquise Brown, right? Tyreek is 5'10", 191. Now, I think Tyreek, obviously when healthy, he's a better player than Hollywood is. And there are a lot of those other conversations. But, there was a quote because, again, Tyreek Hill gets released and everybody starts talking about it, right? And so Mike Florio had an interesting point of view where he said, quote, maybe adding Tyreek Hill is the thing that gets Lamar Jackson to sign the contract the Ravens would have on the table in lieu of pushing for something more. So they're going to be in play potentially. I'm not really sure I agree with that in terms of Mike and saying, oh, well, Tyreek Hill is going to be what makes Lamar sign his contract. And he referred to the whole they signed Odell for Lamar type of situation. I don't know if Lamar is going to be banging the table for Tyreek. Maybe he does. I don't know. And he's like, hey, I would like to play with Tyreek, and they make a move like that. It's possible. But I think the whole Lamar situation and Tyreek probably not related in my opinion. I guess never say never, but I'm not really sure that's a big thing. To me, if you have Zay and Tyreek and Rashod Bateman on the same team together with Tez Walker in there, again, I would prefer a bigger bodied wide receiver because I don't know with Tyreek what he's going to be like when he is going to come back. And so the injury that Tyreek suffered was a dislocation of that left knee plus an ACL tear, damage to multiple ligaments. And again, it's described by multiple doctors as stuff along the lines of catastrophic, gruesome, could be career altering. Like it was a really, really bad injury. And I'm curious to see, but again, for Baltimore, it's like if you have to give, I don't know. I genuinely don't know what his market value is right now. So let's just say it's a 1 year, $15 million deal, kind of similar to what Odell got. Maybe it can go up to 18. I don't know. That's what Odell's deal was. Even if it's $10 million, right? And he doesn't play for half the season or 3/4 of the season. If that money could be used elsewhere on maybe another wide receiver that can help you for a full year that maybe is a little less talented than Tyreek, but there's less, I guess, questions around that guy, or it could be used on an edge guy or an offensive lineman, and you can still get, because I think they should do some work on that wide receiver room. And could that just be bringing back D-Hop and drafting a guy? Maybe. Could it be trading for a big body guy? Maybe. Could it be Tyreek Hill? Maybe. Like there are a lot of options. I just have to see what he would want, because if it's a really team for, like if it's the D-Hop deal, like 1 year, $5 or $6 million, I think you can take a risk on the talent with Tyreek. And again, there's stuff along those lines you can factor in. But if it's like 15 million, I'm not sure I'm doing that for a guy that, again, is going to be 32 coming off that injury. And we don't know what he's going to be like. Again, it's risk reward. And I think that you should take those risks more at the positions of need, like a guard or an edge rusher, as opposed to wide receiver. I think they're probably like, I think D-Hop is a very safe option, right? I think he's a safe option that how he works in the offense. And again, it's going to be a different offense with Declan Doyle coming in. But again, like we can have these conversations about wide receivers like Tyreek because, well, it's going to be a different offense with Declan Doyle. We probably wouldn't be having these conversations if it was still John Harbaugh, Todd Monken, et cetera, and that coaching staff, because they just didn't value receivers as much as other teams did. Now, I think it could be different in Baltimore, which is why all those conversations are popping up. So, man, it's a really intriguing situation. I just, his play style with the injury that he suffered and his age are all real factors. And I feel like the Ravens right now at that position could stand to use, whether it be an upgrade or kind of just hoping guys pan out, sure. But Tyreek Hill is a name that is certainly going to garner a lot of attention based off of who he is as a player and, what he's been able to do over the course of his career, his past and everything. But yeah, that injury situation, there's a lot there. So for Baltimore, I don't predict the Ravens sign Tyreek Hill. I don't. I feel like Buffalo could be an option. Maybe he goes back to Kansas City on a team-friendly deal. I don't know the situation. But if I'm predicting today, I do not think Baltimore brings in Tyreek Hill. I would, again, much rather than bring in Bradley Chubb, who played under Anthony Weaver the past 2 seasons. He's somebody that I think makes a lot more sense than Tyreek does. And that's a name that I'd be definitely excited about. Tyreek Hill, he's a household name. He's somebody that a lot of people know. Obviously, he's been one of the premier wide receivers in this league for a long time. But I think in terms of fit, need-wise and what he brings to the table, I'd rather have Bradley Chubb. Coming up with the final part of the show, though, we will dive into where the Ravens stand, their situation right now compared to other teams, because it might be better than you think. So stay tuned. Funny coming up on the show. First, this show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, expertise, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. Thanks so much again for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Excited to now bring you 2 daily shows. Again, the regular show here, 30 to 36 minutes, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. But we also now have Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time for a mini edition of the show every single weekday. That'll be about 10 to 16 minutes, and along again with all the other stuff that we have to offer. If you have a friend or a family member who's a Ravens fan or wants some daily Ravens coverage, be sure to send them our way on Locked On Ravens. You can follow me also over on social media at ChaosRecord34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. All right, let's talk about the Ravens situation now. Entering free agency again, it's creeping up here for us, right? Like genuinely creeping up. Less than a month to go. And honestly, like I think the Ravens are in a really good spot right now. Now, are there some things that could help them out? Yeah, we've talked about the Lamar Jackson extension and that whole money situation. Hopefully, they're able to get that done before the start of free agency. I mean, I think that is an absolute must for them. Getting Tyler Linderbaum signed to an extension before free agency. I've held firm on the fact that I do believe that if Linderbaum hits free agency and other teams are, competing for his services, I do think he ends up leaving. I think signing Linderbaum, re-signing Linderbaum is really important for them. But look, I mean, across the league, and if you just want to start in the AFC North in particular, like, the big Pittsburgh news is, wow, could Aaron Rodgers return for another year under Mike McCarthy? Like, it doesn't really inspire me for Pittsburgh. Cleveland, obviously, with Todd Monken, and I actually like the Monken higher than a lot of people do, I feel like. But, that quarterback situation, is it Shedeur Sanders? Are they going to go out there and get somebody else? Defense is really good, but Jim Schwartz no longer there, so how's that going to look? And then Cincinnati's just Cincinnati. Like, again, I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are an awesome trio. Chase Brown's a good running back, but, I mean, man, that defense is awful. I think Zach Taylor's a bad coach. Like, until Cincinnati figures out those issues, Joe, Jamar, and T can only take him so far. So, look, is Baltimore's situation perfect? Of course not. They have to figure out their O-line, figure out their D-line, what's going on with some of that money situation, make some splash moves, get the draft right. Like, they're not in a perfect situation right now, but I think they're better off because, again, like the injury situation with Lamar and some other guys was weird last season. If Nandi Madubuike is able to come back in some way, shape, or form, and I know there's still a lot of speculation based off of his post on whether that will happen or not. We don't know at the time of this recording, but again, like that's a huge boost back to that D line. But the Ravens, from where they were the second they lost to the Steelers to where they are now, I have gotten so much more confidence back. We've talked about that on this show before, but like with Kansas City, Mahomes coming back from his injury, Travis Kelce, is he going to play or not? The Bills with Josh Allen, obviously Josh is an incredible talent and James Cook is awesome. That O-line is great, but what's their receiver situation looking like? And they need some help on that defense as well. Like there are a lot of teams like with the Patriots, they had a great year, but they flopped in the Super Bowl. Is that the team that they really are? Or were they the team of the regular season? For Denver, their defense is awesome. They have a solid team, but are they going to be back? There are a lot of up-and-coming teams in the AFC, a lot of teams that didn't do as well last season. I think will do better next year. But I think Baltimore is kind of at the top of that list for me, and that's not even me having the purple glasses on. It's like looking at the situation, like if Lamar can stay healthy, and he is healthy for the entire season. And again, how does Lamar stay healthy? Well, first of all, he has an O-line that can block for him. That'd be a pretty big help. But that's the big thing, right? If the O-line can block for Lamar, keep him upright, not have him take big hits, et cetera, like we know who Lamar can be when he's healthy, right? Like 2024 was not that long ago, everybody. 2025, that was a tough year for the Ravens, for Lamar, injury-wise and everything that went on. But hey, 2023, not that far either. Like, we have recent experiences with Lamar Jackson winning MVPs, should have won MVPs. Like, if you get a guy in there, and maybe it doesn't even necessarily have to be this way, but like if you can get a big-bodied star receiver in there, if you can figure out the O-line, you can get a defense that forces more turnovers and gets back to that Baltimore Ravens football. There are a lot of situations where the Ravens jump right back into that Super Bowl contention window, or not window, but that conversation where they need to be in right now, right? Like they need to be there. And not everything works out. Injuries do happen. Guys don't live up to contracts. It all happens, right? But with Lamar, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Rashod Bateman, and, Mark Andrews, and some of those other guys on that offense, et cetera, like hopefully a big year from Tez Walker. Like you have a high floor. Like, again, that was the big thing, right? Where the Ravens will always have a high floor for the most part, right? Obviously last year it didn't really work out that way, but the high floor, but the ceiling is the big thing. And I think Jesse Minter was brought in to break through that ceiling, much like Todd Monken was brought in to break through that Greg Roman ceiling. So I'm really excited about the Ravens situation compared to some of these other teams, whether it be in the division, in the conference, or whatnot. I think Baltimore has a legit shot next season. And again, it's not set in stone right now because we don't know what happens in free agency. We don't know what happens in the draft and all that. Guys taking leaps. Do they not? Not everything is going to go perfectly because, nothing does. Where there are going to be guys that are relied on that don't step up, or contracts like the stuff that I talked about. But you have such a high floor with Lamar and with some of these other guys there like Kyle Hamilton, et cetera, on the defensive side of the ball, where I think the Ravens will be okay and back in the competition of the NFL. But that's all I have here today on Locked On Ravens. Thanks so much for being here on the web. Be sure to like the subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage coming up. We'll be back here at 6 p.m. Eastern time, diving into more Ravens content and coverage of our mini episode, our check-in, as well as back with the regular show tomorrow morning. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.